Okay, so the number one tool that we use to communicate information is words, written text. I would be remiss if I didn't go into the importance and some pro tips on this. Words are, when we think about our groups, words are the things that go into our information hierarchy groups in our slides, right? So the words that go into our groups, that text, they are made up of something called fonts. Now, fonts are different kinds of lettering groups and they come in two types. Let's take a look. We've got serif fonts over here and sans serif fonts over there. If you're using anything digital, and unless you know what you're doing or your company uses a serif font, don't use them for digital content. They are actually harder to read on a digital computer screen or iPads or mobile phones, and it creates more information for our brain to process. So fonts are usually used in pairs, one for headings and one for the body. The next thing we want to do is we want to apply text alignment rules. So any kind of Word or PowerPoint presentation, you have this little ribbon. It has these text alignment things up here. This is what you use them for. For most of our text, we're going to use the left justify for bodies, for lists, captions, because it has the highest form of readability. When you want to use the center, you want to use it for titles and headings and short blocks of text. You shouldn't be using this one for anything more than 3 lines. Otherwise, it's going to look messy and hard to read. So 3 lines maximum, that's the rule. When you want to use right justify, you want to do this sparingly. Either you have a graphic in which this applies, or you're using it within your slide or your document for dates or contact information or specific image captions or something like this. Now this last one, this justify tab here, it is sometimes a default for some fonts, but it just makes any text so much more difficult to read. And you're going to see this in our examples a little bit later. When we're talking about bullet points, there should always be more than 2, unless there is cause for visual continuity and repetition. Sometimes you have like graphical elements. One text element will have 3 bullet points, the next one may have only 1, and then the third one has 2. So then as a call out, you use a sentence or you use bullets. That's when you would maybe consider turning that single bullet into a sentence. Okay, next, emphasis. Lots of people try to emphasize a certain word multiple ways, but it's a little bit of overkill. Best practice and a nice, clean, professional look will say use only one form at a time. You can use bold or underline or italics or color. Sometimes you can get away with a bold color, but never a mix of all of those. And you have to keep in mind that underline, for most accessibility standards and screen readers, that is indicative of a hyperlink. So it doesn't sound that important, but it is. Altogether, it adds to the professionalism of your presentation. Okay. The last thing is within your text options here on your tool ribbon, you have this thing called shadow. It's just like an S with a shadow on it, and as you can see even here on our slide, it makes text look a little bit muddy and more difficult to read. If you have a lot of things going on in your text, that is going to make it even more difficult to follow. Okay. And the last thing is you want to make sure that you respect the minimum font size readability rules. So let's take a look at that slide that we started cleaning up in the last video that I worked on. So over here, we can see that it didn't fit the margin and we had succeeded in cleaning up the margins. All right. Already, this made a huge improvement in cleaning up the visual look of this group. And within this group, this visual field, we have 8 groups and a 9th in the middle, right? With that title, and that title is the thing that is dictating the borders of the rest of the groups. So over here, we've got a couple of things going on. We have some weird text shadowing, which is muddying up our ability to read it. We have that center justification, which is doing some weird spacing things. We have a lack of alignment in our text boxes, so it makes it hard for our brains to follow, and we have some things going outside of those borders of our group. So they're breaking our group border rules. So let's take a look at what cleaning it up looks like. Okay, so there's still work to be done, but so far we've aligned all the text boxes and we've made sure that everything is left justified or right justified. And remember that rule, if center or right justified, it shouldn't be more than 3 lines. This one is the exception, but we'll get away with it because we have a visual pattern to respect, and everything is the same font size. So we can do even more work to clean this up and we'll see that in later videos, but for now, this is a really nice start. Okay. So remember that other slide that we were using to look at, that readiness progress report slide? We brought in the margins to see what that looked like. And now we still want to see a bit of a break. So we have that double emphasis here. So we have not only a bold text, but a color and an additional underline. That's a little bit, that's taking up a lot of visual space that we can use to do other things with, right? We have a couple of ways of telling the same story. Here we're using percentage as well as a check mark to say that something's on target. Here we have some shapes, but they're different sizes. They're not really aligned. We have a legend, which is great, and now that it's aligned with the border, that's an improvement, but we have different kinds of emphasis here. And maybe we haven't got into colors and the importance of colors and contrast yet, but it does make a difference. So I just kind of went ahead as a precursor to another video I'm going to be doing soon. So let's see what organizing these groups looks like. Okay, so over here, we've cleaned up our text and we've made this a very distinct visual group. We've used color to do this, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, but we've also used alignment and text and fonts and some visual distinguishing elements. So these were done with tables. We used the line elements within the table to help our eyes distinguish what's what and what's aligned with what, right? Instead of using check marks and a number to symbolize where our targets are, we use colors to do this, and it follows through and it makes all of the pieces, the groups are distinct, but they all share similar elements. Each group is aligned with another group, so the borders of this one are aligned with the borders of that one. We have the title in here, but it's delineating the borders of the rest of our groups in here. All of the borders, all of these titles in here, that's the highest part of knowledge within this group, but they are all aligned within those groups. You know what I mean? So we're trying to implement our rules wherever we can possibly apply them. And that's it. That's it for now. If you like the video, like and share for more.